When winter gently places its soft, cold hand on Earth, the universe seems to slow down, lighten, and become a tender storyteller. In that moment, every snowflake falls like a small letter from the galaxy, delivering secrets that only winter understands. That stillness can heal, that darkness can hold you, and that the cold is sometimes a reminder to return to yourself. In this video, I want to guide you to walk slowly, deeply, into the gentle secrets of winter, where science melts into the scent of snow, where knowledge softens like breath, letting your mind drift into a quiet haven. If your heart opens even just a little, leave a like, a subscribe, as a soft whisper in the winter night. And now, when you are ready to listen to a first story, do you know why the winds on Neptune race faster than the winter light's own breath? When we speak about the extreme weather of other worlds, we often imagine chaos, violence, or storms beyond understanding. Yet, if you allow yourself to slow your breath, soften your thoughts, and listen as though the universe were whispering into your ear on a quiet winter night, these cosmic tempests begin to sound less like threats and more like lullabies carved in the language of physics. They become a kind of winter sleep aid, a strange paradox where the wildest storms in the solar system soothe the human mind precisely because they remind us how small, how protected, how delicately sheltered our world really is. Neptune, the silent blue sentinel at the edge of sunlight, carries within its sapphire heart winds that travel faster than sound, faster than bullets, faster than anything a human hand could ever conjure. These supersonic winds swirl at more than 2,000 kilometers per hour. Yet Neptune itself moves with the composure of an ancient monk, barely touched by the storms that roar across its face. As NASA physicist Paul Schenck once said, Neptune reminds us that the universe can be both violent and calm at the same time, perfectly balanced in its own strange poetry. And I believe that deeply, because when we observe Neptune, we witness a truth about ourselves. That enormous energy can exist inside a body that outwardly appears peaceful. Perhaps that is also why winter feels so personal to us. It invites us to quiet the surface while our inner storms still swirl. Mars tells a different story, a world of rust, of memory, of winds that gather every few years into a planetary blanket of dust. A single storm on Mars can grow until it swallows the entire globe, turning day into twilight and the horizon into a place without direction. Some scientists describe these global dust storms as the breathing cycles of a dying giant. And perhaps they are right, because each storm rises slowly, as though Mars were exhaling a century of silence into the cosmos. Carl Sagan once said, "Mars has a kind of loneliness that is haunting, and storms are its way of speaking." I find that line echoes deeply in my own chest, because in every human life, there are seasons when emotions gather like Martian dust, drifting quietly until suddenly they rise, demanding to be seen. From Mars, we learn that storms are not always catastrophes. Sometimes they are expressions, necessary releases. On Jupiter, the Great Red Spot has raged for at least 4 centuries, perhaps more. A storm large enough to engulf Earth twice over, churning endlessly in a ceaseless dance of color and motion. And yet, for all its fury. There is something strangely comforting about its permanence, something lyrical in its persistence. The storm feels like a heartbeat, ancient, patient, and unbothered by the passing of centuries. The late astrophysicist Stephen Hawking once remarked, "Jupiter's storms are reminders that the universe does not rush for us. Time moves differently when you are made of clouds 1,000 kilometers deep." His words carry a lesson, that endurance is not the same as struggle, that sometimes to exist for long periods through chaos, one must simply continue to turn. Saturn offers yet another kind of wonder, a storm shaped like a perfect hexagon at its north pole. A geometric miracle in a world of spirals and circles. A shape drawn not by human hands, but by the invisible mathematics of Saturn's jet streams. The hexagon rotates like a frozen wheel, each edge stable, each corner sharp, as though Saturn were holding a lantern of cosmic precision for us to marvel at. Carolyn Porco, leader of the Cassini imaging team, once said, "The hexagon is Saturn's signature, a reminder that nature makes art through physics." I often think about that, especially during long winter nights when the air outside is still, and the world seems shaped by some quiet intelligence. Saturn shows us that order can rise from chaos, and beauty can rise from patterns too vast for the human mind to fully hold. Then there is the sun, the great lantern of creation, whose outer atmosphere, the corona, burns millions of degrees hotter than its surface. A paradox so strange that even today, the finest minds in astrophysics are humbled by it. The corona pulses with magnetic waves and shock fronts, a storm of pure energy, dancing just beyond our sight. Eugene Parker, the father of solar wind theory, once said, "The sun is not quiet. It only looks that way. Beneath the glow is a storm that never sleeps." And somehow, I find comfort in that, because the sun reminds us that the greatest sources of light often carry the heaviest turbulence. And like the corona, people too can shine brightly while enduring unseen storms. When we journey farther outward toward the icy worlds, we find storms that are colder than any winter known on Earth. Storms made not of water, but of methane, nitrogen, and frozen crystals that move like soft blue ghosts across the twilight edges of Uranus and Neptune. These storms do not roar. They drift with a gentleness that belies their power. And in that gentleness, there is a strange serenity. As NASA scientist Heidi Hammel once reflected, the outer planets move like dream worlds. Nothing is rushed. Everything is patient. And truly, the storms of these planets feel like dreams. Slow, drifting, almost meditative. They teach us that not all power announces itself loudly. Some of the strongest forces in the universe speak softly. All these storms, from Neptune's supersonic gales to Jupiter's centuries of swirling fire, weave a quiet lesson into the fabric of their fury. They show us that extremes are not simply threats. They are expressions of cosmic identity. The universe is not trying to frighten us. It is teaching us, in a language older than life. And if we listen, really listen, we find reflections of ourselves in every storm, in every drifting cloud. Personally, I think of these cosmic tempests whenever winter arrives on Earth. when the wind outside quiets, when the snow falls slowly, when the world becomes a softer version of itself. I remember that even the fiercest storms eventually become part of a greater harmony. I remember that my own storms, emotional or spiritual, also have their place. And I remember that peace is not the absence of turbulence, but the understanding of it. So, as you let your breath slow and allow this gentle exploration of extraterrestrial weather to settle into your mind like falling snow, perhaps you will feel the soft invitation beneath it all. An invitation to rest, to reflect, to drift between curiosity and calm. Let the storms of Neptune, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and the Sun cradle you in their distant rhythms. Let them remind you that you are small, but never insignificant. Fragile, but beautifully resilient. And let them guide you gently into the deeper wonders that await in the next whisper of the cosmos. When we drift from the storms of distant planets into the realm of colossal landscapes, something quiet and profound begins to happen. The solar system stops feeling like a place of chaos and becomes instead a gallery carved by time, by silence, by the slow and patient sculpting of cosmic forces. In this way, exploring these monumental terrains becomes almost like watching a calming winter documentary, a meditation on how worlds are shaped, and how we ourselves are quietly shaped by our own landscapes within. Valles Marineris stretches across Mars like a scar of ancient memory, a canyon so immense it could swallow an entire continent of Earth without effort. When the Viking mission first revealed its vastness, planetary scientist Michael Carr whispered words that historians still quote today. We expected cracks. What we found was a world broken open. And truly, Valles Marineris does not look merely carved. It looks revealed, as though Mars tore itself open to show us the deep red bones beneath its dust. What moves me most is not the size, but the silence, because the canyon has no rivers now, no wind strong enough to hollow its chambers. It simply exists, still, enduring, holding the echo of ancient geological battles that once thundered across Mars like forgotten seasons. I often think that the canyon reminds us of something deeply human, that even the greatest ruptures eventually become landscapes of reflection, places where we rest instead of fear. Far to the west rises Olympus Mons, the quiet giant, a volcano so tall that if you stood on its summit, you would rise above the Martian atmosphere and touch sky almost untouched by air. Olympus Mons is 3 times taller than Everest, yet its slopes are so gentle that you could walk from base to peak without realizing how high you've climbed until you look back. This mountain does not roar. It does not erupt with the violence we imagine from volcanoes on Earth. It simply grows, slowly, patiently. In the words of NASA geologist Jim Head, Olympus Mons is what happens when a planet dreams upward for billions of years. There is something deeply comforting about that thought, because it reminds us that greatness does not always come from struggle. Sometimes it comes from slow accumulation, from steady becoming. We too build ourselves over time, layer upon layer, until one day we look back and realize we have risen far higher than we imagined. Mercury, small, scorched, and seemingly barren, carries a tiny whisper of contradiction in its polar craters. Inside those shadowed bowls, untouched by sunlight for billions of years, lies frozen water. A gentle impossibility in a world that burns hotter than any metal forge. When this discovery was first confirmed, planetary scientist Sean Solomon said, "Even the closest planet to the Sun keeps secrets made of ice." I love that line, because it reminds me that even in places we believe are too harsh, too unforgiving, too exposed, tiny pockets of tenderness can survive. Mercury teaches a simple lesson. That harshness is rarely absolute, and that cold can endure even in the heart of fire. If Mercury whispers, Io screams. Jupiter's volcanic moon erupts not in decades or centuries, but constantly, like a world in a perpetual state of release. More than 100 active volcanoes spew fountains of molten sulfur into space, painting Io in colors no artist could blend. Yellows, reds, whites. A palette born from relentless heat. The late astronomer Ashley Davies once remarked, "Io is alive in a way no other moon can match. Its heartbeat is magma." Standing on Io, if such a thing were possible, would be like standing inside the breath of a giant. The ground trembling, the sky glowing, the air shimmering with volcanic auroras. Yet, in that overwhelming heat, there is also something hypnotic, something strangely peaceful. Io teaches us that expression is necessary. That pressure ignored eventually becomes destruction. And that sometimes the only way to survive is to let our inner fire speak. Then there is Triton, Neptune's captured wanderer. A moon that refuses the ordinary. It orbits backward, its surface rippled with nitrogen ice, and its geysers burst softly into the dim blue light like cosmic sighs. Astronomer William McKinnon once said, "Triton is a world sculpted by dreams, not by sunlight." And he is right, because Triton looks more like a memory than a world. More like a frozen echo carried across the solar system until Neptune pulled it into its soft blue gravity. Triton has a way of making you feel as though you are watching creation in slow motion. Something delicate, something sacred, happening without urgency. A reminder that not everything in the universe is meant to be loud. Some wonders appear as whispers. Enceladus speaks in whispers too, but its whispers reach far, farther than anyone imagined. Beneath its icy crust lies an ocean of liquid water, warmed by tidal forces that churn like a heartbeat beneath the shell. And through cracks along its south pole, Enceladus exhales plumes of water vapor hundreds of kilometers into space. As Cassini scientist Carolyn Porco beautifully said, Enceladus is a cosmic snow globe, and each plume is a message from its hidden sea. There is a tenderness in Enceladus, a gentleness, as though the moon is offering its inner world to the universe without fear. Its soft, shining plains, its quiet fractures, its shimmering geysers, all speak of a world that knows how to protect itself while still sharing pieces of its truth. As we move across these enormous landscapes, from canyon to volcano, from ice crater to burning moon, from captured wanderer to ocean world, a single thread begins to weave through them all. The universe builds its wonders slowly, patiently, without rush. and it allows destruction to coexist with creation. Personally, I find that these colossal terrains teach us something about our own inner geography. We all carry canyons inside us, carved by moments of rupture. We all carry mountains we've built slowly over time. Achievements formed not in explosions, but in small layers of effort. We carry craters where cold memories still linger, and volcanic places where our passion rises with unstoppable force. We carry dreams frozen like Triton, waiting for a gentle gravity to pull them into motion. And oceans like Enceladus, deep, hidden, full of life, waiting for a crack to let it surface. If the landscapes of the solar system teach anything, it is that there is beauty in endurance, grace in slow becoming, and quiet strength in surviving our own extremes. So as your breath softens into the rhythm of this journey, and the cosmic imagery settles over you like a winter snowfall, let these distant terrains remind you that your own landscape is still forming, still rising, still finding its shape. And when you are ready, we will step together into the next whisper of the universe, where new wonders wait beneath the quiet glow of distant suns. When we drift away from the towering mountains and silent canyons of other planets, the solar system reveals a softer secret, a quiet miracle hidden beneath ice. In the same way that winter on Earth hides rivers beneath frozen surfaces, the outer worlds hide oceans beneath shells of ancient frost. And these hidden oceans have become some of the most relaxing winter facts we could ever whisper about the universe. Not because they are simple, but because they remind us that warmth and life can persist even when darkness stretches longer than a year. Europa floats around Jupiter like a pale lantern, its skin cracked with lines that look almost like scars. But beneath that icy shell, deeper than the deepest trench on Earth, rests an ocean of salt water so vast it might contain more water than all the oceans on our planet combined. When the Galileo spacecraft first sensed the magnetic fingerprint of this ocean, NASA scientist Margaret Kivelson said, "Europa is telling us quietly, insistently, that something moves beneath its ice." That idea has never stopped echoing in the scientific world, because Europa's ocean may be warm, active, full of the chemical ingredients we associate with life. And what moves me most is its silence. An entire ocean hidden under kilometers of ice, untouched by sunlight for billions of years, yet potentially stirred by hydrothermal vents just like those at the bottom of Earth's own seas. In that darkness, life might dance without ever knowing a sky. Ganymede, the largest moon in the solar system, carries an ocean too, but one more complex, more layered, more like a cosmic lasagna of ice and water. Scientists now believe it has multiple stacked oceans, separated by frozen layers, extending hundreds of kilometers deep. When the Hubble Space Telescope detected auroral shifts that hinted at these submerged seas, researcher Joachim Sauer shared a thought that still feels like poetry. Ganymede may hold more water in its darkness than Earth holds under all its light. I often think about that line on cold nights, when the world outside grows still, and the snow muffles every sound. Because it reminds me that depth does not need illumination to be meaningful. It only needs space. Ganymede teaches us that internal layers, emotional or geological, can be vast, structured, and quietly alive even when no one sees them. But if Europa whispers and Ganymede hums, Enceladus sings. Saturn's bright white moon, no larger than a continent, shines with the brilliance of new snow. And from its south pole, geysers of water burst into space like shimmering fountains. Cassini flew directly through those plumes, tasting their chemistry and discovering something astonishing. Inside them were organic molecules, salt, heat signatures, and hints of hydrothermal vents at the bottom of an ocean far below the ice. Astrobiologist Christopher McKay said once, "If Enceladus doesn't have life, it is the closest non-living system to a living one we have ever found." And those words feel almost sacred, because they point to a truth we rarely consider, that life may not be rare, only hidden, waiting. Enceladus has always felt to me like a heartbeat under ice, persistent, rhythmic, tender. It teaches us that revelations do not always erupt with violence. Sometimes they rise in delicate plumes, drifting gently into the light. Farther away, where sunlight thins into a deep and endless dusk, Pluto turns slowly, carrying scars of impact basins and plains of frozen nitrogen. Yet beneath its icy crust, many scientists believe a liquid ocean still sleeps, kept warm not by sunlight but by the quiet persistence of radioactive decay. New Horizons researcher Francis Nimmo once said, "Pluto is colder than any place we can imagine, and yet it may cradle a warm sea beneath all that darkness." There is such tenderness in that contradiction. A world so distant, so cold, so forgotten, yet possibly nurturing one of the solar system's last hidden oceans. Pluto feels like a reminder that even in the coldest chapters of our lives, something inside us remains warm, quietly preserving what we may someday need again. Callisto, ancient and cratered, dark as a winter sky, circles Jupiter in hushed dignity. For a long time we thought it was geologically dead, a relic, a fossil moon. But magnetic data from the Galileo spacecraft hinted at something unexpected: an internal ocean, slippery, silent, hiding beneath a crust peppered with billions of years of history. Planetary scientist Torrance Johnson once murmured, "Callisto looks frozen, but inside it may be soft as memory." I find that thought deeply soothing, because it reveals a universal truth. Even the most battered surfaces may conceal gentleness beneath. Callisto shows us that age does not negate possibility, and that wounds do not exclude depth. When we step back and consider all these worlds together, Europa, Ganymede, Enceladus, Pluto, Callisto, a single whisper rises from their combined silence. That life in the universe may not be confined to Earth, that water and warmth coexist in places where sunlight never reaches, and that the universe holds more chances for beginnings than we have yet dared to imagine. A century ago, the idea of oceans on other worlds would have been dismissed as fantasy. But now, as Cassini, Galileo, Hubble, New Horizons, and the James Webb Space Telescope continue to whisper data into our hands, we find ourselves facing a question older than science itself. Are we alone? And for the first time, the universe seems to respond, not with silence, but with possibility. Personally, I find this idea deeply calming, especially during quiet winter nights when the world grows still, when the cold settles like a blanket, and when the darkness feels gentle instead of heavy. These hidden oceans remind me of something soft, something I believe we all feel but rarely name, that the universe is far more nurturing than it appears. It may look cold, empty, indifferent, but beneath the surface of countless worlds lies warmth, movement, chemical whispers of life. And in that way, these cosmic oceans hold a quiet message for us, that beauty and potential are often hidden beneath our own surfaces, that we each carry depths no one can see, that stillness does not mean emptiness, and that darkness does not mean lifelessness. The solar system's hidden seas teach us that the unknown is not something to fear, but something to unfold gently, like a winter night revealing stars one by one. So as you breathe slowly, letting your mind float like a drifting snowflake through this quiet realm of icy worlds, may you feel a sense of peace rising inside you. The kind of peace that comes from knowing the universe is full of secrets, and that many of those secrets are warm, alive, waiting. And when you are ready, we can continue deeper into the next whisper of the cosmos, where even stranger wonders wait beneath the stillness of endless night. When we travel from the oceans, hidden under ice, toward the deep interiors of worlds, the solar system shifts its tone, becoming quieter, heavier, as though we are entering the heartbeat of planets themselves. This is where the universe speaks in low frequencies, in the gentle hum of magnetic fields, in the slow rotations of molten cores. And in this deepening quiet, the mysteries of planetary magnetism become another form of winter science for sleep, soothing not because they are simple, but because they ask us to listen with patience, like one listens to the wind on a cold night. Venus, the twin that should resemble Earth, instead walks through the cosmos with a silence that is almost unsettling. For all its size, its density, and its molten core, Venus has no global magnetic field, a fact that has puzzled scientists for decades. When the Pioneer Venus mission transmitted the first clear data, NASA researcher Christopher Russell said a line that would become legendary. "Venus is Earth without a shield, a mirror that shows us what happens when a planet forgets to protect itself." I find that thought quietly haunting, because a magnetic field is not just a scientific property. It is a kind of guardian, a silent protector that wraps a world in invisible arms. Without it, solar winds strip atmospheres, radiation bites deeper, and the sky becomes a harsher place. Venus reminds us that beauty does not guarantee safety, and that similarity does not guarantee destiny. Earth, in contrast, carries a magnetic field that dances constantly, bending solar particles into auroras that shimmer like curtains of electric snow. But what truly sets Earth apart is something deeper, something rooted in its crust and mantle. The fact that it is the only planet we know with active plate tectonics. This constant movement, slow and powerful, acts like a cooling breath for the planet, allowing heat from the core to escape in delicate balance. James Head, one of the leading voices in planetary geology, once said, "Plate tectonics is Earth's long, slow exhale, Without it, our world would drown in its own heat. There is a profound softness in that idea, that the ground beneath our feet is not merely solid, but alive in its own geologic rhythm. It teaches us that movement is necessary, that stagnation can suffocate, and that even the strongest structures must shift and yield to remain whole. If Earth breathes, Mercury glows, not with light, but with density, with a core so enormous that it makes up more than half the planet's radius. No one fully understands why, though theories drift like cosmic snowflakes across scientific journals. Some say early collisions, others say solar heat stripped its outer layers. Whatever the cause, Mercury's core is a quiet anomaly, a reminder that even the smallest worlds can carry unimaginable heaviness inside them. As planetary scientist Maria Zuber once reflected, Mercury is tiny, but its heart is too big, and it forces us to rethink what a planet is allowed to be. I often find myself thinking about Mercury on long winter evenings, because so many people carry inner weights no one can see. Small on the outside, vast on the inside. Mercury teaches us not to judge by appearance, and not to assume simplicity where there is depth. Ganymede, the moon we visited earlier for its layered oceans, carries yet another marvel. It is the only moon known to have its own magnetic field. Not a faint one, not a temporary one, but a true internal dynamo generated by a molten iron core. This means Ganymede is not only massive, but internally alive, churning, moving, in ways that make it feel less like a moon and more like a small planet dreaming under Jupiter's shadow. When Hubble confirmed the magnetic interactions around Ganymede, researcher Johannes Geiss said softly, "This moon has a voice, and it speaks in magnetism." And truly, watching the auroral ovals shimmering across its poles, one cannot help but feel that the moon is whispering something ancient. There is a tenderness in Ganymede's independence, the way it generates its own field despite orbiting the most dominant planet in the solar system. It becomes a quiet symbol of inner strength, of maintaining one's identity even when pulled by stronger forces. But nothing compares to Jupiter's magnetic field, a titan of invisible force, stretching millions of kilometers into space. Jupiter's magnetosphere is so vast that if it were visible to the naked eye, it would appear larger than the full moon in our sky. It traps radiation, shapes plasma, sculpts the orbits of moons, and hums with energy that would be deadly to any spacecraft lingering too long. Astrophysicist Scott Bolton summarized it perfectly during the Juno mission. Jupiter does not have a magnetic field. It has a magnetic world. And when you imagine that immense invisible storm swirling silently around the gas giant, you begin to understand why ancient civilizations looked at Jupiter and saw gods. Its field is not just a scientific curiosity. It is a reminder of how small we are, and how much power the universe hides behind calm exteriors. As we contemplate these differences, Venus with no shield, Earth with a living crust, Mercury with its oversized heart, Ganymede with its defiant identity, and Jupiter with its overwhelming domain, a question slowly rises, like breath in cold air. Why does the universe craft each world so differently? There is no single answer, only a pattern that feels like poetry. Every world is shaped not by what it should be, but by what it has endured. Collisions, cooling, isolation, gravity. The universe sculpts planets the way rivers sculpt stone, slowly, patiently, until each one becomes a landscape of its own history. Personally, I find deep comfort in these differences because they echo the diversity of human journeys, each of us shaped by our own collisions, our own heat, our own quiet processes that no one else can fully see. Venus teaches us what happens when protection fails. Earth teaches us the importance of movement and release. Mercury teaches us that smallness does not mean weakness. Ganymede teaches us that identity can flourish even near giants. And Jupiter teaches us that power can be vast without needing to be loud. These planetary interiors and magnetic oddities are not simply facts. They are the universe, reminding us that every world, every life, every story carries its own balance between vulnerability and strength. So as your breath softens and your thoughts drift through this quiet gallery of planetary hearts, let yourself rest in the idea that the universe is both fierce and gentle, both chaotic and precise. A place where invisible shields guard fragile beauty, where molten cores whisper truths across billions of years, and where every world, including your own inner world, is shaped by a story deeper than the surface can ever reveal. And when you are ready, we will drift forward again, into the next quiet mystery waiting in the long, soft night of the cosmos. When we drift deeper into the solar system, moving past molten cores and magnetic storms, we enter a quieter realm, a region where the laws of motion begin to behave like poetry rather than mechanics. This is where orbits tilt, where worlds turn backward, where time itself stretches in gentle contradictions, and where the universe becomes a soothing space documentary whispered in the language of cosmic rhythm. Venus is the first world to break our expectations, a planet that spins in the opposite direction of almost every other major body in the solar system. Instead of turning from west to east, Venus turns slowly from east to west, as if moving against the current of time. When the Magellan spacecraft mapped its surface, planetary scientist David Grinspoon said a line that still echoes in classrooms and observatories today. Venus is the universe, reminding us that not every dance follows the same choreography. What makes the planet even more astonishing is the pace of this backward spin. A single day on Venus lasts longer than an entire Venusian year. It takes the planet 243 Earth days to rotate once, but only 225 Earth days to complete an orbit around the Sun. This means that if you lived on Venus, the Sun would rise not only in the west, but so slowly that it would take a lifetime to watch one full rotation. As Carl Sagan once described it, on Venus, sunrise is less an event and more a geological era. There is something deeply meditative in that image, a world where time is stretched like warm honey, where motion becomes stillness, and where a single day feels like the memory of an ancient season. Venus teaches us that time is not universal. It is a rhythm, and every world chooses a different beat. Farther out, tilted in a way that defies even the imagination, lies Uranus. The ice giant does not simply lean, it lies on its side, rotating at a dramatic angle of nearly 98 degrees. Its poles do not sit at the top and bottom, but face toward the Sun, like the ends of a slowly spinning barrel. Scientists believe a massive collision in the early solar system knocked Uranus into this sideways posture. Yet, despite the violence that likely created it, the planet now moves with a strange serenity, each season lasting 21 Earth years. When Voyager 2 flew past Uranus in 1986, astrophysicist Heidi Hammel reflected softly, "Uranus is the quietest world, and yet its silence is the most mysterious." I often return to that thought, because Uranus teaches an unexpected lesson, that even the strangest paths can lead to stillness, that being different does not require explanation, and that harmony can exist even after great upheaval. But if Uranus is a sideways dream, Triton is a rebellious whisper. This icy moon of Neptune moves in the opposite direction of Neptune's rotation. A retrograde orbit so rare that it almost certainly means Triton was not born where it lives. Instead, it was likely captured long ago, a wandering world pulled into Neptune's cold embrace. When Voyager 2 photographed Triton, planetary geologist Paul Schenck remarked, "Triton is a ghost that does not follow the rules of the living." And truly, the moon glows with an otherworldly quality, its nitrogen geysers rising like pale breaths against the faint blue twilight. There is a loneliness to its backward motion, but also a kind of quiet dignity. Triton reminds us that not all journeys move forward. Some move inward, some backward, some sideways. And yet, all remain valid paths through the universe. But perhaps the most enchanting story of orbital strangeness belongs not to a moon, but to a distant blue planet discovered before anyone had ever seen it. Neptune, the last major planet in the solar system, was found not through a telescope at first, but through mathematics. Tiny deviations in Uranus's orbit hinted that another world was tugging at it. And in 1846, after meticulous calculations, astronomer Urbain Le Verrier predicted exactly where this unseen planet would be. Johann Gaillet then pointed his telescope to the coordinates, and Neptune appeared almost immediately. Astronomer Camille Flammarion later wrote, "Neptune was pulled from the void by thought alone." A sentence that feels less like science and more like a spell. The discovery of Neptune is a reminder that human curiosity is powerful enough to reveal worlds we cannot yet see, and that the universe responds when we dare to ask the right questions. Yet the dance of orbits grows even more poetic when we consider the relationship between Neptune and Pluto. Though their paths cross on paper, the two worlds never collide. They are locked in a gravitational resonance, a cosmic choreography in which Pluto completes 2 orbits for every 3 of Neptune's. This resonance ensures that the two will always keep a respectful distance, never drawing too close, never drifting too far. Astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson once described this dance with a line that feels like quiet wisdom. Pluto and Neptune are cosmic partners, never touching, never colliding, yet eternally aware of each other's presence. I often think about this resonance on winter nights, when silence fills the air like a soft snowfall, because it teaches us something deeply human. Some relationships do not require closeness to be meaningful. Some remain in harmony, precisely because they maintain distance. Pluto, and Neptune remind us that balance comes not from sameness, but from rhythm. As we wander through these strange planetary motions, backward spins, tilted axes, captured orbits, mathematical discoveries, and gravitational dances, a soft truth begins to crystallize. The universe does not seek perfection. It seeks variation. It crafts worlds that bend rules, worlds that challenge expectation, worlds that exist in ways we did not think possible. Personally, I find enormous comfort in these cosmic oddities. They remind me that there is no single correct way to move through existence, no universal pace we must follow, no required direction for growth. Venus moves backward and still glows brilliantly in the dawn sky. Uranus lies sideways and still carries rings and storms with quiet elegance. Triton orbits the wrong way and still holds nitrogen geysers that rise like silver breath into space. Neptune was discovered by thought, proving that unseen paths can still be real. Pluto dances in resonance, showing that harmony can exist without closeness. These worlds whisper a message we often forget. You do not need to move like anyone else to belong in the universe. Your orbit can tilt, reverse, spiral, or stretch, and you will still be part of the cosmic dance. So as your breath slows, and your thoughts drift like starlight across the dark, let these strange orbits soothe you. Let them remind you that the universe is vast enough for every rhythm, every tilt, every unexpected turn. And when you're ready, we can continue further into the next soft chapter of the cosmos, where even deeper mysteries wait beneath the quiet sweep of interstellar night. When we drift from strange orbits into the gentler outskirts of the giant planets, the solar system once again softens, as if inviting us into a quiet gallery where worlds adorn themselves with halos of light and dust. These rings, delicate, shimmering, impossibly thin, are among the most elegant structures in the cosmos, and they are the reason so many people fall asleep to science videos that whisper about their beauty. Saturn is the first to greet us. Its rings spread across space like the wings of a sleeping angel. They stretch hundreds of thousands of kilometers across, yet many parts of them are no thicker than a house. When the Voyager spacecraft brought back the first close images of these rings, astronomer Caroline Porco said softly, "They are not objects. They are music carved in ice." And she was right, because Saturn's rings seem less like matter and more like a vibration, something felt rather than touched. But beauty does not guarantee permanence, and Saturn's rings are slowly disappearing. Tiny particles of ice are constantly pulled downward by Saturn's gravity, creating what scientists call ring rain. This rain falls silently through the planet's magnetic field, sparkling like invisible snowfall. Cassini data revealed that the rings may vanish in as little as 100 million years. A blink in cosmic time. As physicist James O'Donoghue once said, Saturn is eating its own beauty, one grain of ice at a time. There is something tender in that slow fading, a reminder that even the most magnificent wonders have lifespans, and that impermanence gives meaning to the present moment. I often think about this when watching winter snow fall, every flake temporary, every shape fleeting, and yet the beauty is never diminished by its brevity. As we drift farther, Uranus comes into view, cloaked in soft blue light, carrying rings far dimmer and stranger than Saturn's. Its rings are narrow, dark, and tilted along with the planet's dramatic 98-degree axis. They follow the planet's sideways rotation like dancers leaning into a long-forgotten melody. When Voyager 2 captured their first images, astrophysicist Bradford Smith whispered, "They look like shadows pretending to be rings." Uranus reminds us that wonder does not need to be bright, that some forms of beauty are meant to be discovered slowly, in silence. There is a lesson in that, a reminder that subtlety is not weakness, and that, quiet, things can still shape the soul. Jupiter, enormous and powerful, also carries rings, but they are so faint that telescopes on Earth struggled to notice them for centuries. Made mostly of dust, they are shaped by the tiny moon Metis, whose constant collisions and surface ejections feed the ring with new particles. When the Galileo spacecraft confirmed the structure, planetary scientist John Burns said, "Jupiter has a halo after all. It simply refused to boast about it." There is something profoundly human in that idea, that even giants wear their beauty modestly, and that strength does not require display. Neptune, far away at the blue edge of sunlight, also wears rings, but theirs are incomplete, broken into arcs instead of full circles. These arcs appear and disappear, shimmering like the breath of a sleeping giant. No one fully understands why they persist, because the physics of ring systems suggest they should spread out evenly. Yet Neptune holds them in place, with a gravitational whisper that feels almost magical. Astronomer Andrei Brahik, who helped discover Neptune's arcs, once said, "The universe loves imperfections. Neptune's rings are its signature." And perhaps he was right, because Neptune's broken rings feel like poetry written in fragments, the kind of poetry that leaves space for imagination. But rings are not only adornments, they are also cradles, because many moons throughout the solar system were born from these delicate structures. Material from collisions, from shattered comets, from gravitational tearing, formed tiny clumps that grew into worlds. Saturn's moon Pan, shaped like a cosmic walnut, is believed to have formed from the ring material it now shepherds. Tiny moons like Daphnis, Atlas, and others dance through the pole, rings like children who have never forgotten the place of their birth. This idea that moons can rise from rings has always moved me, because it mirrors something we know intuitively, that beauty can give birth to form, that chaos can give birth to order, and that even fragile things can become the foundation for something lasting. As we move deeper into this soothing landscape of cosmic halos, a soft truth begins to unfold. Rings are not permanent, not stable, not eternal. They exist in a delicate balance between creation and disappearance, held together by gravity, sunlight, collisions, and time. They are reminders that beauty is often temporary, and that this temporariness is what makes it meaningful. Personally, I find a deep comfort in this, because our own lives carry similar rings, circles of experience, relationships, memories that orbit us for a time. Some brighten us like Saturn's icy loops. Some fade like the faint dust of Jupiter. Some break into arcs like Neptune. And yet, all of them shape us. All of them teach us. All of them eventually dissolve back into the vastness from which they were formed. The disappearing rings of Saturn whisper a gentle message that letting go is not loss, it is transformation. The tilted rings of Uranus remind us that beauty can follow any orientation. Jupiter's humble rings show that greatness does not need spectacle. Neptune's arcs teach us that incompleteness is a form of art. And the moons born from rings remind us that new life can rise from the most fragile beginnings. So as your breath slows and your mind drifts like dust suspended in sunlit space, let these cosmic rings soothe you. Let them wrap around your thoughts like halos of quiet silver. And let their gentle impermanence lull you the way winter snow lulls a silent forest. These are the moments people seek when they fall asleep to science videos. Moments where knowledge becomes soft, where the universe becomes a lullaby, and where vastness becomes a place of rest rather than awe. And when you are ready, we will continue drifting forward into the next quiet chapter of the cosmos, where even stranger wonders wait beneath the gentle glow of starlight. When we drift away from the wide, elegant rings of the giant planets, the solar system begins to feel quieter, more intimate, as though we are stepping into a region where the universe hides its smallest stories. These stories belong not to giants or glowing worlds, but to objects so small they can be missed by even the gentlest glance. And yet, they carry some of the most gentle winter secrets in all of astronomy. Asteroids. The rocky fragments scattered between Mars and Jupiter are far more complex than the word rock suggests. Many of them have companions, moons circling bodies no larger than a mountain. When the Galileo spacecraft discovered that asteroid Ida had a tiny moon named Dactyl, planetary scientist Joseph Veverka said, "Even the smallest worlds refuse to be alone." I have always found that line comforting, because it reminds us that companionship exists at every scale, even among objects drifting through endless silence. These miniature moons circle rubble, dust, fragments, and yet their presence transforms something small into something with a story. Most people imagine the asteroid belt as a crowded region, a chaotic maze where rocks constantly collide. But the truth is the opposite. The region is astonishingly empty. If you stood on an asteroid, you might not see another one for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. When astronomer Donald Yeomans first explained this to the public, he smiled and said, "Hollywood lied to you. The asteroid belt is mostly quiet space. There is something peaceful in that emptiness, something that resonates with long winter nights when the world seems bare, yet full of quiet possibility. The emptiness between asteroids is not loneliness. It is space for change, time, and gentle orbits to unfold without fear of collision. And yet, for all that calm, many asteroids are fragile beyond belief. They are not solid stones, but piles of shattered pieces held together only by the soft pull of gravity. Rubble piles, scientists call them. Worlds that have survived countless impacts by falling apart instead of standing strong. As mission specialist Dante Loretta from NASA once said, "Asteroids endure not through hardness, but through surrender." I often think about that during difficult seasons of my own life, because rubble pile asteroids teach a powerful lesson. Strength sometimes means yielding, not resisting. They show us that survival does not always look like defiance. Sometimes it looks like flexibility. But the story grows stranger as we travel outward, toward the region where comets originate. Many of these icy travelers come not from the quiet asteroid belt, but from the distant Oort cloud, a sphere of icy bodies stretching almost a light year from the Sun. We have never seen it directly, yet its presence is inferred from the strange orbits of long-period comets. These objects fall toward the Sun from the very edges of interstellar space, carrying chemical memories older than Earth itself. Jan Oort, the astronomer who first proposed this distant reservoir, once wrote, "The outer solar system is a whisper, and comets are its messengers." There is a softness in that sentence, a reminder that even the most ancient fragments speak in quiet voices. As comets approach the Sun, their ices vaporize, creating two long tails, one made of gas, one made of dust. And here lies one of the most counterintuitive secrets of the cosmos. The tail does not trail behind the comet. It always points away from the Sun. No matter which direction the comet is moving. Solar wind, that constant breath of charged particles, carves the tail outward, turning each comet into a luminous arrow pointing into the dark. As astrophysicist David Levy once said, "A comet is a snowflake the size of a mountain, illuminated by the breath of the Sun." That image, a cosmic snowflake carried by solar wind, has always felt like winter poetry to me. It feels like a metaphor for the way light shapes us, guiding us, pushing us gently even when we cannot feel the motion. As we continue drifting through this quiet realm of small worlds, each one reveals another gentle winter secret. Some asteroids spin so fast they bulge at the equator. Others tumble chaotically like leaves in a cold wind. Some harbor ice, others metals. Some are older than the planets, and some may have formed only recently from collisions we will never witness. They are archives, libraries, the surviving fragments of a solar system still becoming itself. Personally, I find profound comfort in these fragments, because they remind us that broken things can still wander with grace, and that even the smallest pieces of existence hold stories worth hearing. A rubble pile asteroid drifting through a sea of silence, a moon orbiting a rock no wider than a city, a comet carrying ancient light toward the Sun. These things remind us that scale has nothing to do with meaning. The emptiness of the asteroid belt teaches us that space does not diminish significance. It simply gives each object room to breathe. The tails of comets teach us that even when we move through darkness, there is always something pushing us gently forward. The rubble piles teach us that survival can be quiet, and that endurance often comes from softness. These small bodies do not roar. They do not shine. They do not command entire systems. And yet, they shape worlds through impacts, deliver water through collisions, bring organic building blocks to newborn planets. Without them, Earth might not have oceans, or continents, or even life. In their quiet drifting, they have sculpted everything from landscapes to destinies. So as your breath softens, and the room around you dims into a peaceful stillness, let these small cosmic wanderers soothe your thoughts. Let the idea of a tiny moon orbiting a tiny world remind you that companionship exists, even in vast emptiness. Let the image of a comet tail pointing away from the sun remind you that light always shapes the path forward. Let the rubble piles remind you that being fractured does not erase your place in the universe. These are the gentle winter secrets hidden in the smallest corners of the solar system. Secrets of resilience, of silence, of inward motion, of quiet creation. And as we continue drifting outward, carried by the slow heartbeat of the cosmos, we prepare to enter regions even more mysterious, where the universe stores its oldest stories in the coldest light. And when you are ready, we will follow those whispers into the next chapter, deeper into the soft unfurling of the cosmic night. When we drift away from the small wanderers of the asteroid belt, the universe begins to cool again, settling into the deep blue serenity of the outer solar system. This is a region where sunlight fades into a pale whisper, where the warmth of the inner worlds becomes a distant memory, and where the cosmos reveals wonders that feel almost unreal. Here, in the cold vastness that so many people dream of in their winter relaxation videos, the giant ice planets hold secrets carved in pressure, heat, and silence. Uranus is the first to greet us, a turquoise orb lying sideways in the void. At its core, far beneath clouds of methane and storms that move with deliberate slowness, pressures rise to unimaginable levels. Under those conditions, carbon atoms squeeze together, forming crystals, diamonds, that fall through the mantle like celestial rain. When this idea was first proposed, physicist Kevin Baines said, "On Uranus, diamonds are not treasures, they are weather." I find that thought astonishing, because it transforms one of Earth's rarest and most coveted objects into something ordinary, something falling endlessly in a silent storm. It reminds us that value is a matter of context, that what is precious in one world may be common in another. And deeper still, far beyond Uranus's gentle glow, lies Neptune, darker, wilder, holding storms that move faster than sound. And beneath those storms, diamond rain likely falls even more violently than on Uranus. Under its extreme pressures, carbon compresses into jewels that cascade downward, forming layers of solid diamond near the core. When astrophysicist Niku Madhusudan discussed this, he said, "Neptune may have mountains of diamond, deeper than any dream. But Neptune's strangeness does not end with storms of gemstones. The planet emits far more heat than it receives from the sun, meaning that deep inside, something burns quietly. Scientists believe residual heat from its formation, along with gravitational compression, fuels this internal warmth. Planetary scientist Heidi Hammel once described it gently. Neptune glows from within, like a coal that never fully cooled. There is something poetic in that image. A planet so far from the sun that daylight is barely a memory, yet it carries its own fire. It teaches us that inner warmth does not require external light, that some sources of heat come from within, And perhaps that is a lesson we all need during the cold seasons of our lives. But Neptune is not the only world with an internal flame. Jupiter, the giant of giants, also produces more heat than it receives. Its immense gravity compresses hydrogen into metallic form, creating a furnace of pressure so intense that heat radiates outward constantly. As Juno mission scientist Scott Bolton once said, "Jupiter shines with a warmth born of gravity itself." Jupiter's heat is not like the Sun's. It is soft, internal, ancient. The leftover echo of a world that nearly became a star, but stopped just short. Sometimes, when I think of Jupiter's quiet glow, I imagine it as an old soul, holding on to a memory of the fire it almost carried. And then we drift farther still, into the far reaches where sunlight becomes a thin blue thread stretching across darkness. Here, Pluto moves in an elongated orbit, its seasons lasting centuries. And as it travels, its atmosphere behaves like a ghost. When Pluto nears the Sun, even slightly, frozen nitrogen on its surface warms, sublimates, and forms a thin atmosphere stretching hundreds of kilometers upward. But when Pluto drifts away, the atmosphere collapses, falling as frost back onto the surface. Astronomer Alan Stern described it like this: Pluto breathes, but only in centuries. That idea has always stayed with me, because it reframes atmosphere not as a permanent feature, but as a rhythm. Pluto inhales when warmth approaches, and exhales into silence when darkness returns. A cycle so slow that no human lifetime could witness it fully. There is deep beauty in that patience, and in the reminder that not all cycles are meant to fit within our awareness. Some truths unfold over time spans far beyond our own. As we float through this cold kingdom of ice giants and faraway dwarfs, a soft realization begins to take shape. These icy worlds, though distant, though dim, though cold, pulse with hidden energy. They show us that coldness does not mean emptiness, and silence does not mean stillness. Under crushing pressures, diamonds form. Under thick atmospheres, heat escapes. Under faint sunlight, weather breathes over centuries. These truths whisper something deeply human. That inner fire matters more than external warmth. That pressure can create brilliance. That slow cycles are still cycles. And that transformation often happens beneath surfaces no one watches. Personally, I find the ice giants to be the most meditative of all planets. Their quiet storms, their internal heat, their diamond rain, all feel like metaphors for the ways humans endure. We hold warmth even in our coldest seasons. We reshape under pressure. We breathe at rhythms slower than others expect. And sometimes, our brilliance only forms when we are deep below the surface. Uranus teaches us that beauty can emerge from oddness. Neptune teaches us that fire can burn inside the cold. Jupiter teaches us that gravity, even metaphorical gravity, can warm a life. Pluto teaches us that breathing is not always constant. Sometimes it is seasonal. And all of them teach us that the outer darkness of the universe is not empty. It is simply quiet. so as your breath slows, and your thoughts drift like snowflakes across a winter night. Allow these distant worlds to soothe you. Let Uranus's diamond rain calm your mind. Let Neptune's inner glow warm your chest. Let Jupiter's ancient heat steady you. Let Pluto's ghostly atmosphere remind you that cycles turn even when we cannot see them. These wonders are the heart of every winter. Relaxation video. The quiet secrets of the solar system carried across billions of kilometers, waiting to settle gently into your thoughts. And when you are ready, we will drift even farther into realms where the night deepens and the universe speaks in whispers older than time. When we drift outward from the quiet realms of ice giants and ghostly atmospheres, the solar system shifts again, not into deeper darkness, but back toward the radiant heart that holds everything in place. For all the mysteries scattered across billions of kilometers, there is one presence that threads them together: the sun, our star, our constant, our source of both creation and fragility. And in this gentle moment, whispered in the tone of soft-spoken astronomy, we begin to understand how delicate our place truly is. The sun, though steady in our sky, is a world of continuous loss. Each second, it sheds millions of tons of mass through radiation and solar wind. An invisible storm of particles pouring outward in all directions. This outward breath shapes the entire solar system, from the shimmering tails of comets to the delicate structures of planetary atmospheres. As astrophysicist Parker Solar Probe scientist Noor Rawafi once said, "The sun is not quiet. It is always exhaling." I find that image both powerful and peaceful, because it reminds me of the universal rhythm of giving and losing. The sun shines by diminishing itself, and in doing so, it gives life to every world we know. It teaches us that offering our energy does not weaken us, it defines us. For all this loss, the sun remains dominant, holding more than 99.8% of the mass in the entire solar system. Everything else, planets, moons, comets, dust, spacecraft, makes up only a fraction. This staggering imbalance creates a gravitational symphony in which the sun plays every leading role. As NASA heliophysicist C. Alex Young once said, "The solar system does not orbit the sun, it obeys it." Sometimes when I think of that, I feel both humbled and reassured. Humbled because of our smallness, reassured because we are held by something ancient and luminous. But the sun is not a static lantern. It is a restless, magnetic engine. Every 11 years, its magnetic field flips. North becomes south. South becomes north. Solar activity rises and falls in a cycle that shapes space weather across the entire system. Sunspots bloom and fade. Flares erupt. Coronal mass ejections ripple outward like shockwaves through the void. As astronomer George Hale, who discovered the magnetic nature of sunspots, once said, "The sun has moods, and they are written in magnetism." To me, this cycle is a cosmic heartbeat. A gentle pulse that reminds us that even stars have inner rhythms. That everything alive or luminous moves in repeating waves of quiet and energy. But no matter how powerful the sun is, even it has a destiny. One day, billions of years from now. It will swell into a red giant, consuming Mercury, Venus, and possibly Earth. And after that, it will shed its outer layers, leaving behind a white dwarf. A dense, dim, crystalline remnant, no larger than Earth, but with half the mass of the Sun. As astrophysicist Arthur Eddington once wrote, "The Sun will die, but its ashes will glow, like a diamond for eternity." There is something profoundly calming in that transformation. A reminder that even endings can become new forms of beauty. That collapse can give birth to radiance. And that time does not erase. It reshapes. But even before that distant future, the Sun carves out a vast territory around itself. An enormous bubble created by its solar wind. This bubble, called the heliosphere, shelters every planet, moon, and drifting dust grain within its reach. At its very boundary lies the heliopause, the place where the Sun's influence fades into the interstellar medium. It is the true edge of the Sun's kingdom. Voyager 1 crossed this invisible border in 2012. And as it did, project scientist Ed Stone said a line that remains one of the most poetic in all of space exploration. "We are leaving home and entering the ocean between the stars." I remember the first time I heard that sentence, how it seemed to stretch the imagination outward, revealing how small the solar system truly is compared to the galaxy. The heliopause is not an end, but a doorway. And the Sun, for all its power, occupies only a tiny harbor in the vastness of the Milky Way. As we drift in thought through this glowing realm, a realization begins to take shape. Every part of our existence, every breath, every landscape, every ocean wave, every tree, is a quiet inheritance from the Sun. We do not merely orbit it, we arise from it. Our warmth, our seasons, our weather, our ability to live at all, come from the same fusion fires that cost the Sun millions of tons of mass every second. Personally, I find deep comfort in this connection. Because despite our complexity, despite our struggles, despite our questions, we are all made of sunlight slowed into matter. The Sun teaches us that giving can be a form of existence. That presence can be powerful without demand. And that constancy does not require perfection. Its mass reminds us of stability. Its cycles remind us of rhythm. Its eventual transformation reminds us that change is inevitable. And its heliopause reminds us that every life, no matter how bright, has boundaries. And within those boundaries, meaning unfolds. So as your breath slows, and your thoughts drift in warm, gentle arcs across the quiet night, allow the Sun to soothe you. Let its internal fire remind you of your own inner heat. Let its vast gravity remind you that you are held by something larger. Let its cycles remind you that life pulses in waves. Let its future as a white dwarf remind you that endings can shine softly. And let the heliopause whisper that every boundary is a threshold, not a prison. These truths are the soul of soft-spoken astronomy. The gentle teachings of a star that has watched over us for 4.5 billion years, breathing light into our world, moment by moment. And when you are ready, we will drift into the next quiet chapter, where the galaxy opens like a glowing winter horizon. When we drift outward from the heliopause, from the breath of the sun and the vast, shimmering borders of its influence, the solar system reveals one more layer of its quiet complexity. It is a layer woven not of matter, but of invisible threads, the magnetic fields and radiation storms that sculpt every world. These forces, though silent, though unseen, though weightless, determine the fate of planets, the survival of atmospheres, and the safety of spacecraft. And in this moment, whispered softly like winter meditation science, we begin to understand that the universe's gentlest winds can be its most powerful. Jupiter is the first to speak in this realm, not with light, but with fire. Its radiation belts, swirling around the planet like invisible hurricanes, are some of the most dangerous environments in the solar system. Charged particles trapped in Jupiter's immense magnetic field move at near light speed. They can destroy electronics, damage spacecraft, and tear through shielding that would survive anywhere else. When the Juno spacecraft approached Jupiter, mission scientist Heidi Becker said, "It is like flying through a machine gun made of radiation." I remember reading that line and feeling a deep, quiet settle inside me, because it shows how even the largest planet, adorned with beauty and swirling atmosphere, carries a storm beneath its elegance. It teaches us that power does not always roar. Sometimes it hums. The radiation belts form a shield and a threat, a paradox that mirrors many truths in nature. Jupiter protects its moons from cosmic rays, yet it threatens the spacecraft that come to study those moons. Strength and danger, protection and destruction, all held in the same magnetic embrace. As we drift inward from Jupiter's magnetic world, the sun's storms greet us like flickers of an ancient heartbeat. Solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and bursts of charged particles travel through space like invisible tides. When these storms reach Earth, they disrupt GPS signals, distort radio communication, and in rare cases, cause massive power grid failures. The famous 1989 Quebec blackout, for instance, began with a single solar eruption. As NASA scientist Madhulika Guhathakurta once said, "Space weather is not weather you watch. It is weather you feel only when it arrives." There is something gentle and humbling in that. The idea that storms from 93 million miles away can reach into our lives, altering systems we rely on every day. It reminds us that we are connected to the sun not only in warmth, but in vulnerability. Yet even amid the chaos of solar storms, Earth carries a quiet guardian: its magnetic field. This invisible cocoon deflects charged particles, shielding our atmosphere from erosion, creating a safe pocket where life can thrive. Without it, solar wind would strip away our air the way it stripped Mars billions of years ago. As physicist Richard Muller once said, "Earth's magnetic field is the unsung hero of life." I often think about that sentence, especially during quiet winter nights when I look up at the sky. Our protection is silent, constant, unwavering, and invisible. It is a reminder that some of the most important forces in our lives are the ones we cannot see. And then, like a soft curtain falling across the sky, the auroras appear. Shimmering ribbons of light woven from the meeting of solar particles and Earth's magnetic shield. They glow in colors that shift like breathing: green, violet, crimson, dancing silently across polar skies. Auroras are more than beauty. They are signatures of the sun's magnetic cycle, increasing during periods of solar maximum, fading during periods of solar minimum. As astronomer Christian Birkeland, the father of aurora science, once wrote, "The aurora is the Earth writing its poetry in light." To me, auroras feel like the universe opening a small window into its invisible storms. They are gentle, slow, meditative, a reminder that even violent cosmic interactions can produce beauty under the right conditions. As we drift through these magnetic realms, a quiet understanding unfolds. The universe does not separate danger from wonder. It threads them together. Jupiter's radiation belts are deadly, yet they protect its moons. Solar storms can disrupt our technology, yet they create auroras that fill the sky with color. Earth's magnetic field shields us, yet shifts and reversals remind us that nothing is permanently stable. Personally, I find a strange comfort in these contradictions, because they mirror the contradictions in human life. Strength can come with risk. Beauty can come from conflict. Protection can come from invisible hands. And the storms that frighten us can also illuminate our skies. These magnetic forces also teach us something tender: that invisibility does not equal insignificance. Jupiter's belts cannot be seen, but they shape the life of every mission near the planet. Earth's field cannot be touched, but it preserves our atmosphere. Solar storms cannot be held, but they ripple across entire worlds. And auroras cannot be captured, but they stay in memory forever. When we begin to understand these forces, it feels like learning the breath of the universe itself. A slow inhalation of magnetic energy, a long exhale of particles into the void. Cyclical, rhythmic, ancient. This is the heart of winter meditation science. A way of looking at the cosmos not as a machine, but as a living rhythm. So as your breath slows, and your thoughts drift like soft auroral waves across the quiet night, allow these magnetic truths to soothe you. Let Jupiter's fierce storms remind you that strength does not need to shout. Let the sun's solar winds remind you that even the mightiest sources lose something in order to give. Let Earth's magnetic shield remind you that invisible protection is still protection. Let the aurora remind you that beauty can rise from storms. These are the last quiet lessons of the solar system's inner breath. The teachings of fields and forces that shape every world without ever revealing themselves to the eye. And when you are ready, we will drift into the next vast horizon, where the galaxy spreads across the dark like a soft ocean of ancient light. When we drift beyond the magnetic storms and gentle auroras of the previous realm, the solar system invites us into its most fundamental truth, the truth of motion. For nothing in this cosmic family is still, not the planets, not the moons, not the dust, not even the boundaries of the system itself. Everything moves, everything circles, everything drifts through deep time. And as we enter this soft-spoken region, it feels like stepping into the quiet pulse of a space sleep documentary whispered by the universe itself. The first truth we meet is one of shape. That orbits are not circles, but ellipses. Long stretched loops that draw planets closer to the Sun at some moments and farther away at others. Johannes Kepler, who first discovered this truth, once wrote, "The universe is written in ellipses, not in perfection." And in a way, that sentence feels like a meditation on life. Because none of us move in perfect circles. Our paths stretch, widen, tighten, pulling us through seasons of closeness and distance. The planets follow this ebb and flow silently, drifting in long, slow arcs like lanterns carried by invisible tides. The quietness of their motion, the predictability, the patience, feels like a reminder that time does not hurry in the cosmos. It simply unfolds. And then, in the soft glow of Earth's orbit, another motion unfolds. The moon is drifting away. A tiny step each year, about 3 centimeters. So small it seems meaningless. And yet over millions of years, it becomes an epic migration. Lunar laser measurements confirmed this gentle retreat, and NASA geophysicist James Williams said, "The moon is slowly falling out of step with us." There is something quietly heartbreaking in that, and yet something serene, because the moon's departure is part of the same cosmic dance that once gave Earth its tides, its stability, its early life. The growing distance is not loss. It is evolution. A reminder that even the closest companions drift in time. Beyond the moon's steady retreat lies the question of where the solar system truly ends. And this question is more complex than it appears. There are 2 boundaries, 2 edges, 2 truths. One is the heliosphere, the bubble carved by the sun's solar wind, the region where the sun's breath still pushes outward. The other is gravitational influence, the quiet pull that extends far beyond the heliopause into the realms of the Oort cloud. Heliophysicist Merav Ofer once described this distinction with poetic precision. The sun ends in 2 places, where its wind stops, and where its gravity stops. And something about that duality feels deeply spiritual. Because humans also have 2 boundaries, the limits of our reach, and the limits of our influence. Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 crossed the heliopause, leaving the sun's protective bubble behind. But they still remain bound to the sun's gravity, drifting outward like 2 old travelers carrying decades of data and whispers. They will not truly leave the solar system for tens of thousands of years. A reminder that boundaries are rarely simple. Meanwhile, the entire solar system is not standing still. It is orbiting the Milky Way, completing 1 revolution in roughly 225 to 250 million years. A period known as a galactic year. No creature has ever lived long enough to witness a full turn. Not even the dinosaurs. We are passengers on a ship that circles the galaxy at 220 kilometers per second. Yet we do not feel the motion. We simply drift. Astrophysicist Carl Sagan once said, "We are travelers on a tiny world, endlessly circling an immense spiral of stars." And when I hear that line, the vastness of the galaxy becomes less frightening, more like a long, slow journey through a cosmic ocean. Yet, even as we move through the galaxy, our atmosphere is slowly leaking into space. Hydrogen and helium escape the most easily, drifting into the void as Earth's gravity fails to hold them. Over billions of years, the atmosphere changes shape, composition, density. This process is called atmospheric escape, and it is one of the quiet ways planets evolve. Mars lost most of its air this way, leaving behind a cold desert. Earth, too, is losing its atmosphere, but much more slowly. A reminder that nothing in the universe is perfectly permanent. NASA astrobiologist Chris McKay once said, "Planets breathe, and sometimes they exhale forever." That sentence lingers like a soft echo, because it captures the fragility of planetary life. As we drift through these truths, a deeper realization slowly emerges. Motion is not a detail of the solar system. It is its essence. Orbits are not perfect. They are elongated. Moons do not stay fixed. They drift. Boundaries do not stand still. They expand and contract. The solar system does not rest. It migrates through the galaxy. Atmospheres do not remain constant. They leak. Everything moves. Everything flows. Everything transforms. Personally, I find these motions profoundly comforting, because they remind me that wandering is not failure. Drifting is not confusion. And change is not instability. Even the planets, with their enormous ages and gravitational anchors, shift in ways small and large. The moon moves on. The atmosphere thins. Orbits stretch. Boundaries ripple. And yet the system remains whole. Perhaps that is the quiet lesson hidden in this cosmic dance. That stability does not come from stillness. It comes from motion. Not from resisting change, but from flowing with it. The solar system is not a rigid machine. It is a river. And each world, each orbit, each drifting moon is a current within it. So as your breath slows, and your mind drifts gently like a planet circling in the dark, let these truths soothe you. Let the elliptical paths remind you that your life does not need to be perfectly circular. Let the moon's drifting distance remind you that separation is natural. Let the dual boundaries of the solar system remind you that you too have limits of reach and influence. Let the slow galactic orbit remind you that journeys can span beyond imagination. Let the atmosphere's quiet escape remind you that release is part of existence. These are the gentle truths of Space Sleep documentary. The quiet wisdoms carried by drifting worlds. And when you are ready, we can continue into the final chapter, where the solar system's story widens into the vast glowing arms of the Milky Way. When we drift away from the drifting boundaries of orbits and the slow breathing of planets, the solar system offers one last chamber of wonder, a quiet gallery filled with worlds so strange, so delicate, so unlike anything we know, that they feel almost like dreams carved into ice. These places, shimmering softly in the outer darkness, hold some of the most calming bedtime science the universe has ever written. The first whisper comes from Titan, Saturn's golden moon, covered not in water, but in rivers and lakes of liquid methane. Its surface is wrapped in a thick orange haze, like a lantern glowing behind frosted glass. When the Huygens probe touched down in 2005, planetary scientist Caroline Porco said, "It is the most Earth-like world we have ever seen, and yet it is nothing like Earth." Titan's lakes lie still under a nitrogen sky, reflecting light in muted silvers, shaped by rains that fall not as water, but as cold hydrocarbons drifting from clouds like slow-moving ghosts. I often imagine standing on its shore, the air thick, the horizon blurred, the silence deep enough to feel like a second atmosphere. Titan teaches us that likeness does not require sameness, and that alien beauty exists even in the strange chemistry of cold moons. Then the universe turns its gaze toward Io, Jupiter's innermost large moon, a world that is the complete opposite of Titan's calm. Io is alive with fire. It hosts more volcanic activity than any world in the solar system, its surface constantly reshaped by fountains of molten sulfur bursting hundreds of kilometers into space. As volcanologist Ashley Davies described it, Io is destruction and rebirth happening every day. The moon glows with patches of yellow, red, black, each one the scar of an eruption. And beneath its chaotic surface lies a world held in tension between gravitational forces, pulled and stretched by Jupiter and its neighboring moons. Io reminds us that pressure can shape landscapes, and that creation often rises from friction. From fire, we drift into a gentler strangeness. The dwarf planet Ceres, floating quietly within the asteroid belt. Ceres is small, fragile, ancient, and yet beneath its dusty crust lies something surprising, a deep, briny ocean of mud and salt. When the Dawn spacecraft sent back pictures of bright white patches on its surface, planetary scientist Carol Raymond said, "Ceres is not a dead relic. It is a world still whispering its chemistry." The salt deposits look like frost-kissed mirrors, glinting faintly in the distant sunlight. They hint at a hidden ocean where minerals dissolve into liquid, where heat from the interior stirs slow chemical conversations. There is a quiet humility in Ceres, a small world holding a secret ocean in its heart. It teaches us that greatness does not require size, only depth. Beyond Ceres, in the cold outer reaches near the Kuiper Belt, lie the icy dwarf planets Halma, Eris, and Makemake. These worlds shine with a brightness almost unnatural, as though coated in powdered glass. Because their surfaces are made of frozen methane and nitrogen, sunlight reflects off them like off a polished mirror. When astronomer Mike Brown discovered Eris, he said, "It is a world so bright. It throws sunlight back into space like a shard of ice." Eris, more massive than Pluto, circles the Sun in an elongated orbit that stretches far beyond the reach of ordinary imagination. Makemake glows reddish, shimmering under the faintest rays. Halma, though lesser known, is coated in ice, so reflective it gleams like a frozen mirror. These worlds feel like memories, like distant echoes of planets that never formed. They remind us that solitude can shine, and that isolation does not extinguish beauty. And then, drifting quietly in the shadows of other planets, we find the captured moons, worlds that were once wanderers, pulled into orbit by gravity's gentle snare. Phobos and Deimos, the tiny moons of Mars, are thought to be captured asteroids. They circle the planet like timid companions, their surfaces etched with scars from ancient collisions. Phobos creeps closer to Mars each year, inching toward an eventual breakup, while Deimos drifts outward like a shy traveler, keeping its distance. But the most haunting captured world is Triton, Neptune's strange backward-spinning moon, likely born in the Kuiper Belt, then pulled into Neptune's orbit long ago. When Voyager 2 photographed Triton in 1989, planetary geologist Paul Schenck said, "Triton is a ghost captured by a giant. Its icy surface, its nitrogen geysers, its retrograde orbit, all whisper the story of a world that once roamed freely and now moves in a quiet backward circle." Triton teaches us that even captured lives retain their own poetry, and that losing one path does not erase the possibility of a new one. As we drift through all these strange worlds, a soft realization forms. There is no single definition of a planet, no single definition of beauty, no single definition of belonging. Titan invites us to breathe beneath alien skies. Io reminds us that fire shapes life. Ceres whispers that the smallest hearts can hold oceans. Halma, Eris, and Makemake show that distance does not dim radiance. And the captured moons teach us that journeys change, but meaning remains. Personally, I find this final gallery of worlds to be the most human of all, because each one carries a story of transformation. That methane lakes can mimic seas, that volcanic destruction can shape new surfaces, that small icy bodies can reflect more sunlight than planets 10 times their size, that worlds can lose their freedom and still remain beautiful. These truths sound less like astronomy and more like meditations on the human experience. Titan teaches us that familiarity can arise in unfamiliar places. Io teaches us that turmoil can birth renewal. Ceres teaches us that hidden depths matter more than outward form. The bright, dwarf planets teach us that shining is not a matter of circumstance. And Triton teaches us that even captured paths hold dignity. So as your breath softens, and the night folds gently around you like a cosmic blanket, allow these strange worlds to lull your thoughts. Let Titan's cold lakes soothe you. Let Io's volcanic fires remind you of the energy within. Let Ceres's hidden ocean remind you of your own inner reservoirs. Let the icy dwarf planets calm you with their quiet radiance. Let Triton remind you that every orbit, even a backward one, has meaning. These are the closing whispers of calming bedtime science, the final gentle notes in the solar system's lullaby. And when you are ready, we will drift into the Milky Way itself, where new wonders wait beyond the soft horizon of light.